Hey guys, this is Corey here with Roy.
Hey guys,
We're getting ready for the second part of our March Madness segment.
and we will be breaking down the South bracket.
The South region, where Florida is the number one overall seed. We're getting ready. I apologize, this took us a little longer than we wanted. I had a lot of trouble today picking out my bracket and who I wanted. Roy was pretty quick, actually.
Yeah, I was pretty quick, but Corey was just stressing all of the streets of Israel. I'm pretty sure the locals were just looking at him like, is this boy always depressed? He was looking like Eeyore from Winnie the Pooh. Okay, I'll stop there. That's a little random. But yeah, his bracket at first was so chalk. He was just so frustrated. I went up to him. I was like, Corey, what is wrong with you? He was like, my bracket, it's just, I've won 4, 2, 3, but I won't ruin it yet. We'll get to the bracket a little later.
I mean, it's just so frustrating because, you sit down to do the bracket and you know everything about, the teams, the players, their three-point shooting percentage, their true efficiency, their points per possession, and you just can't figure out who's going to win the Dayton-Ohio State game. It's so frustrating, and you know this coming in. It's so hard to pick a bracket every year, but yet we do it. I was depressed, couldn't figure out what to pick. But I have my bracket. Rory has his.
And I guarantee our sister Stacy will most likely pick a better bracket than us because she'll pick the team with the best name and the best mascot. And that's the thing about the March Madness. That's the beauty of it all. You never know who's going to win, and that's why we love it.
So we'll begin with the South region. Just to give you a brief overview, we have Florida as the 1 seed playing the Albany Mount St. Mary's winner. 8-9 game between Colorado and Pitt. 5-12 between VCU Stephen F. Austin. The 4 seed UCLA playing Tulsa.
And then in the bottom half of the bracket, for the 6-11 game, we have Ohio State versus Dayton, and we'll go with that later. That's going to be interesting. We have Syracuse versus Western Michigan in the 3-14 game. In the 7-10 game, which will be a very good game, we have New Mexico, Stanford, and then finishing out the bracket as the 2 seed Kansas versus the 15 seed Eastern Kentucky. And that's a little overview of the South region.
So we'll begin. Teams most likely, Rory and I have agreed to be as the most likely to come out of the South region.
We're stuttering there.
Yeah.
It's like you're doing with your bracket.
And represent them in the Final Four. Very funny. So we can both agree on this, despite some of my problems with my bracket and my stuttering. Florida, Kansas, I think we both see as the two teams most likely.
I really don't see anyone else progressing on. I think UCLA. I think they have a chance for an upset if they can get a shootout, score more. Kyle Anthony is just an outstanding.
Kyle Anderson, yeah.
Kyle Anderson, an outstanding player. And I'm personally not a Syracuse fan. I haven't liked them since the beginning of the season. So I think we can both agree that Florida and Kansas are the two kind of top teams and representative of their seeds.
And Kansas has played a really tough schedule this whole season, so they'll be battle tested. The question with them is Embiid, as we'll talk about through this entire thing.
Will he be back for the first games, which they really need him for? But more importantly, will he be back for those deciding games?
So he's been suffering with the knee injury. We'll see what happens there. Florida, I think we both agree, probably one of the deepest teams in the entire field. Yeah. Chris Walker, Casey Hill coming off the bench. Roy said that last video.
Yeah. And Dorian Finney-Smith. Not a lot of people know him, but another role player for Florida. Just a deep bench in 18. That's just a very solid, balanced team.
Yeah, so Florida and Kansas, I think the two top teams. You could argue that with Embiid, Kansas and Florida are the two best teams in the entire tournament.
Yeah, no, you could with Embiid, but that's a totally different team with Embiid and without Embiid. So you gotta take that face value for what it is.
So that's the teams we think are most likely to win the region. Next portion we'll go to is double-digit seeds that we think to upset. We have two double-digit seeds that we think have possible upset possibility.
And just saying, like Corey said, it's possibility. We're not saying we have these in our bracket. We're just giving you high-seeded teams that have a chance.
So the two that we have here are Dayton and Stephen F. Austin.
We really like Dayton. A10. They are battle tested. They have played 8 different teams that are in the tournament as of right now. And the A10 is one of the best conferences, really showing up amazing in this tournament. Do you remember how many teams actually got in from the A10? Six or so. Six or so. So obviously they're very much battle tested. A deep team, and their first matchup is going to be very interesting versus Ohio State, a team that's struggled shooting-wise. Aaron Craft, not a great scorer, great on-ball defender, hasn't had the team around him like he had in the past years with Jared Sullinger and Deshaun Thomas, so we'll see that. I think in Dayton they're going to be looking for blood, obviously, in the Ohio rivalry.
Yeah, because Dayton and Ohio State, two in-state rivals, haven't played a series since 84 through 88. No Murdoch and Thad Mata. They're going to meet former Ohio State assistant coach, is now the head coach of Dayton. So there's ties there. Also, Dayton's leading scorer went to Ohio State, transferred to get more playing time to Dayton. Now is their best player. So that's another storyline.
by the
Yeah.
way. That's his name. Their leading scorer transferred, so that's going to be a whole interesting storylines. And then on to my favorite team, Stephen F. Austin.
Yes.
What a great name. Let me say that.
28 game win streak down in Texas.
And another Twitter fact for ESPN Sports Sports Info, I'm pretty sure they have the longest active win streak at
home.
At home, yes.
They haven't
about
lost
33 or so games. Don't quote me on that, but about 30 or a little more.
Haven't lost at home since February of 2012.
Ridiculous.
So Stephen F. Austin plays VCU.
And you know there's always going to be a 12-5, so
Yeah, always 12-5 every
you don't even
year.
have to look at the game. You just know by the seeding there has to be one.
So Stephen F. Austin and Dayton, two possible high seeds to make a run. High seed that could possibly lose, we have as Syracuse to watch out for.
Syracuse has struggled in the past, both NC State games, not just their home, but not just their away game in a hostile environment, but also their home game. They've struggled versus these kind of lower seeding teams, not really showing up. And obviously, the big problem with them is who's going to score for them. Without CJ Fair, if CJ Fair doesn't put up huge numbers, they struggle.
So Syracuse is 2-5 in their last 7 games. Lost in the ACC tournament to NC State. They have not played that well. So they're a team who possible alert for either a loss to Western Michigan or maybe a third round loss, what they call it now, their second game to either Dayton or Ohio State. And the last part of our segment before Rory and I give out our picks for everybody to copy and get wrong.
And yes, there will be blood on the floor once we disagree. Don't worry.
We'll see who gets the better bracket. Possible bet on the line. We'll see. We haven't determined yet. But the 3 players to watch we chose as
Cameron Bairstow from New Mexico. And yes, I'm going to get before Corey mocks me. I did make a mistake. He was not, I believe he was not the Mountain West player.
He was not. Let me chide you a little bit.
In my opinion, he was. Let me just say that.
So Xavier Thames actually won the Player of the Year from San Diego State. Rory mistakenly thought it was Cameron Bairstow, which was wrong. So, everybody makes mistakes.
Hey, with 20 points a game, Corey, I don't know if I'm pretty sure he should
After
be.
the video, I was making fun of Roy for making that mistake, but he owned up to it. He put him on his player to watch. Deserved. Other 2 guys, Andrew Wiggins, Kyle Anderson.
And the big thing with Andrew Wiggins, he needs to be assertive, like you told me even before this podcast, because you watch actually a lot of Kansas, so you can talk about him.
Yeah, Wiggins, I personally have liked Wiggins this season. I know he's gotten a lot of criticism, and for being on the cover of Sports Illustrated, that's probably what you're going to get when people are comparing you to LeBron. But I think Wiggins has played fairly well this season, especially the tail end of the year. Without Embiid, he's had really good games against West Virginia. He had a really good game against Iowa State, and he's been doing that getting to the free throw line. He got to the line 19 times, 10 times, and 10 times in his last 3 games. So if he's getting into the lane, being assertive, we know he can shoot because he has a good jump shot. I think
That's improved in the latter part of the season.
Yeah, I think he's a solid player. I don't think he's been as great as people thought, but he's athletic. He can do a few plays during a game where you're just like, wow, no wonder the Sixers have lost 20-something straight games, tanking so hard. So Wiggins, obviously one of the best players. Kyle Anderson
is one of my favorite players, being a New Jersey boy.
San Anthony kid,
San Anthony, Fairview, New Jersey. Well coached by Bob Hurley, probably the most famous coach in all of high school basketball. So he's well coached, and he's the X factor. 15 points a game, 9 rebounds, and 7 assists. Just ridiculous numbers. A 6'9" point guard. He's lanky. He almost kind of reminds me of at least in the lengthwise, kind of like a Kevin Durant. He needs to gain some meat on him for the next level, but none of that. We're in college basketball, the sport we really enjoy. So he's a great player, the X factor. He can play so many positions, and he's just a great player. And he's a player to watch, especially if they're going to be able to beat Kansas. Florida. Florida
at the top half
in
of
the Sweet 16. Yeah,
so if they get there.
If they get there.
So Anderson, interesting player. They call him slow-mo. He's not fast. It's so weird how he manipulates around the course because he's big and tall as a point guard. And
very
he's not
awkward-looking player, but he gets it done.
Yeah, and finally we end with the kid from New Mexico, Cameron Bairstow. From Australia, he actually went to the Australian Institute of Sports where Dante Exum goes. Dante Exum is going to be a top 5 pick up there with Marcus Smart for best point guard. He's a good big man inside, 20 points a game. Rory's big Mountain West Player of the Year, although he doesn't have a vote. And
I
so,
should, by the way. That's ridiculous.
Yeah, we got to get on.
Mountain West fanatic right here.
So that's our general overview. And so now it's the moment we've all been waiting for. Drum roll. Our South Region picks. All right?
Okay.
So we're going to go back and forth on each game.
Can I start with the first?
Yeah, we'll alert you. We'll run you through it so it's an easy progression.
So
we'll start. I'll intro the games. Rory will give his pick. He'll intro the game. We'll give a pick. So we'll start. 116, 16 seeds are 0 and 116 against their 1 seeds.
Yeah.
Does Rory have Albany and Mount St. Mary's pulling off the impossible against Florida?
I don't even think they could beat him with both of them playing as one team. But I was kind of studying the game, trying to look at Mount St. Mary's and Albany, and I was thinking, there's no way they're going to win. Florida, obviously, too good of a team. I'll save the analysis for a little later, but Florida's just too dominant of a team. 16 seeds never really going to win. And believe it or not, I have Florida going.
It's going to happen sooner or later. I mean, I think Georgetown almost lost in a 116 game a while ago. It's going to happen.
Yeah, but I think Florida's too strong.
Not here.
Hey, maybe Wichita, but we'll get into that later. But I think Florida is going to advance.
So Rory has Florida. Likewise, I'll save my breath and your breath.
Yeah.
Florida is going to win that game. They're going to move on.
So the next game is the 8-9. Obviously, a great game between Colorado
and Pittsburgh.
Who actually Colorado beat Arizona early in the season.
They did. They beat Kansas.
No, sorry.
They beat Kansas.
They beat Kansas, my B. And Pittsburgh, who hasn't had that many good wins, but Pittsburgh with Lamar Patterson, a good team. So, who do you got there, Corey?
Colorado, Pitt. I have Pittsburgh. Rory, who do you have?
I have Pittsburgh. I think Lamar Patterson is one of my favorite players, 17 points a game. They're a very well-rounded team, and the one thing that has worked well for them when they've played well is actually when they do the pick and roll. They have a great pick and roll.
Patterson and Talib
Zanna, they're about top 15 in the country with assists, about like 15 or like 11, about that range, assists per game. So they work that pick and roll very well. But the question is for them in that game is who's going to be their third scorer? They've struggled with that third scorer.
Cameron Wright's going to have to probably step up as that guard. But I here the problem that I see Colorado having is with that playing without Spencer Dinwiddie.
Yeah.
Because Dinwiddie with the bus when he was playing, they were 14-2. Mm-hmm. They beat Kansas, as Rory said.
Yeah.
He's their leading scorer. Then when he tore his ACL since then in the Pac-12 and for the rest of the season, they were 9-9, so 500. Mm-hmm. They really struggled without him. I just see Pitt as too much for Colorado.
Yeah. No, in order for Colorado to win, if you're a Colorado fan, we'll give you some hope. I think Josh Scott and Askia Booker really have to go off. Josh Scott has not played well in his the last 4 games of the regular season, only averaging 9 points a game, 3 points under his average, 3 or 5 points under for his average from the season. So if Colorado wants to pull off this win, it's not really pull off. They're actually the highest tiered team, but if they want to win, they're gonna have to play a big game, both of them.
All right, so we'll move on to the next game, 5-12, VCU, Stephen F. Austin. I have VCU, Rory has Stephen F. Austin. I'll give why I have VCU first. You can follow.
What a gentleman over there.
So VCU, here's why. I love the Havoc defense under Shaka. Okay, I know they have some trouble scoring, 64 points per game, but here's why. I think they force so many turnovers, most turnovers in the nation, around 18 per game. They're the best in the nation at forcing steals. They're also 6th in defensive efficiency. I think
they're actually first in the nation, just to say, 11.3 steals per game. So that's amazing.
So really tough defense, press all game. I think it's going to be tough for a mid-major like Stephen F. Austin to try and combat all that pressure up and down the court. I think VCU will force just too many turnovers for a Stephen F. Austin team that averages 11 per game. And I think that VCU will win a close game. Stephen F. Austin's a good team, but I like VCU to escape using that pressure up and down the court.
I think Stephen F. Austin is extremely underrated. Coming from the Southland Conference, they don't really get a lot of views in. It's fair because they're not that viewed of a team. Obviously, Southland not the greatest of the conferences, but I think VCU they can just go on these cold shooting slumps. I just think they're gonna go on one. I think in order for VCU to win, Trevion Graham has to go big, but I just think the shooting percentage is really dreadful. It's in the 200s, which is terrible. I just don't think they have enough offense. And when I look at Stephen F. Austin, I see a team with two seniors, a junior, and 2 sophomores. So these teams have been together. They're not the Kentuckys. These guys are staying there for 4 years, and they're just an all-around team. 8th in assists with 16.6 a game, and turnover rise to counter your point. They're actually 54th in the nation, which is not the best, but it's pretty good. So they're a veteran team. They're not gonna go out cold. They know what they're doing. So I think Stephen F. Austin can't pull the upset.
So here's Stephen F. Austin. I have VCU. The matchup to watch in that game is rebounding. Stephen F. Austin is 13th in the nation in offensive rebound percentage, but VCU is 9th in team offensive rebounds per game. So the boards is going to be where the game is going to be determined. Whoever wins the boards, I think, wins the game.
It's kind of like football. Whoever wins on the line.
Exactly. All right. So now next game we have UCLA, Tulsa. Me and Rory and I both like UCLA.
Yeah, I just think UCLA is too strong of a team for Tulsa. I think Jordan Adams, and like we said before, Kyle Anderson, though, is the X factor. I think I think they're just too good of a player. Too good of two players. I think they're just a better overall team.
The only thing I'm concerned with is the Steve Alford syndrome. Look at all the early round losses he's had. This was a maze when I looked this up. All right, with Iowa 2006, they lost as a 3 seed to Northwestern State.
Okay, Corey, why did you not tell me before I picked them? Come on,
I'm
Corey.
just saying. Listen to this. 2010 with New Mexico, they lost as a 3 seed to 11 seeded Washington, and then we all remember last year when they lost to Harvard as a 3 seed to the 14 seeded Harvard. So I'm always nervous with a coach who continues to lose early in the tournament, but I think it's safe to say UCLA will tap Tulsa.
So just switch that pick right there, Tulsa.
Yeah.
I'm just joking, but I think UCLA is too strong of a team with who they have right now.
Yeah, so we'll keep UCLA there. Just saying, coach who's not doing well in the tournament, I don't know.
These are proven syndromes, too, by the way.
These are factual. They're on WebMD. So we go to the next one. We've been talking a lot about Dayton. 6-11 game. Rory and I both have Dayton over Ohio State.
Yeah.
So, will there be Ohio revenge for Dayton? What do you think, Roy?
I think, like we said before, there's a lot of rivalries going in. Dayton has repeatedly said they want to play Ohio State. They want to get that rivalry. You talked about the assistant coach and Jordan Sibbert. I think, because we always talk about, when people talk about, they say, what's the key upsets? What's the key to upset? And I think it's the 3-point shooting. And they have 3 players who are over 38% from the 3-point line. And Jordan Sibbert, their best player, shooting 44% from the line. And in their big win against Gonzaga, maybe their marquee win of the year in the Maui Invitational, he had 23 points against them. So the team rallies around him. He has to go off in order for them to win. And I just think Ohio State is not a good scoring team. They're just not a scoring team, and I think their whole team struggles. I think Kraft is he struggles when their team's not scoring. Without Lenzel Smith Jr. going big, I just think they're gonna have trouble scoring.
So the reason that I think Dayton's gonna win this game is if you look at their season this year, when they went on their 4-game losing streak to Richmond, VCU, Rhode Island, and St. Joseph's, they were playing mainly without their only big man. He's 6'10". Yeah. But the thing is, Ohio State really only has one big guy, Amir Williams. That's it. He's their only guy above 6'8".
Oh yeah, 6'8", actually.
So they're not going to have to compete with the size of Ohio State, something that they struggle with. I think Ohio State struggles in scoring 208th in points per game. They only shoot 32% from 3. I think that it'll be a low-scoring game, tight to the end, but we both like Dayton.
I'm going for Dayton.
Next matchup, Syracuse, Western Michigan. We'll talk about Syracuse more in the next round, but we both have them escaping versus Western Michigan. And the next game is New Mexico against Stanford. New Mexico, we know, got a little underseeded. We both really like their team, though, and we both have them topping Stanford in a game where we think that if this was business school...
I think Stanford has it.
Yeah,
or Quiz Bowl, anything education-wise.
We will take Stanford. I mean, they have a good team this year with Dawkins leading the helm, but we both like New Mexico to top them. Cameron Barstow... Rory's Mountain West Player of the Year. Keep on bringing it up. Never going to let him forget it.
Thank you, Corey.
But we have them advancing on, and we have them playing Kansas, who we both have.
Eastern Kentucky. No, I'm just joking.
Yeah.
Kansas will advance to the next round. So
no Florida Gulf Coast we don't have from this year.
Unfortunately.
Eastern Kentucky doesn't have that flashy Dunk City kind of mantra to
Actually,
it.
they don't have the flashy coach's girlfriend, to be quite honest.
That's Rory, we're on the air. We can't say that. Let's keep that down. So we're finally in the second round. Just a brief overview. I had Florida, Pitt, VCU, UCLA, Dayton, Syracuse, New Mexico, Kansas. Rory had...
We had the same thing, besides I have Stephen F. Austin actually beating VCU. I believe that's our only difference, right?
Correct. So now we'll go to the third round. First matchup is Florida-Pitt at the top. We both have that.
Yeah, I have Florida. I just think Pittsburgh doesn't have enough scoring to compete with Florida. Florida's so well balanced. It's going to be tough for them to outscore them. So I just have Florida.
I have Florida as well. Pitt always lets you down in the tournament. Literally every single time. I've picked them so many years. In 2011, I remember, I think I had them as my national champion. They were 1 seed, lost to Butler. I mean, Butler made the title, but still
not trust Pittsburgh. That is basically the point of this video.
Yes. Do not trust Pitt. Do not trust Steve Alford. Do not trust New Mexico Business School, I guess, is another point. But yeah, that's a whole
Okay,
other
stretching
story.
it, but back on to our next game, which we have two different things. So Corey, you can go first.
Yeah, so I had Florida advancing to the Sweet 16 there, by the way.
Yes.
So I have VCU against UCLA. Rory has Stephen F. Austin against UCLA. I have UCLA topping VCU. I think Kyle Anderson's cool, calm, collected. They always say that about Tom Brady. But Kyle Anderson, I like him to be able to break down the press. Jordan Adams is a really good scorer. I just think that UCLA will be able to handle the press, make it up the court. They score 81 points per game, so the fast pace won't fluster them at all. And I like UCLA to beat VCU, advance to the Sweet 16 to play Florida.
Yeah, and that's the nicest thing you've ever said about Tom Brady. Thanks, Corey.
Yeah, no problem.
But I think Stephen F. Austin, in order to win, and the reason why I think they're going to win the VCU game is it's going to be a low-scoring game where I think they can outgrind them, and they're just that seniority kind of at the end, and that kind of that senior-led team will prevail. But I think against UCLA, like you said, there's too high. It's going to be too high of a scoring game. UCLA is just going to outscore them.
Yeah, UCLA likes that fast pace, and they have scorers like Zach LaVine, Kyle Anderson, Jordan Adams. They have guys who can
Just
who can
too
put
many
the ball in the
scores
bucket.
for Stephen F. Austin to contain.
So we both have Florida, UCLA in the Sweet 16.
This is where it gets interesting.
Dayton, Syracuse. I just think that that's where the run ends for the Flyers. I think that Syracuse, although we mentioned that they were 2-5 down the stretch, the key there was that they played a lot of those games without Grant. And when they lost to Virginia, he was hurt, and he didn't play when they lost to Georgia Tech. And I just think that he provides that score that you mentioned, aside from C.J. Fair. So they have Ennis, who's obviously a really good leader, point guard. They have Fair, the really good mid-range game, got that nice little bank shot from the elbow area. And I think Grant provides that third score for them. So I think that should be enough to get them by Dayton.
Yeah, I think Grant will add a lot, but I just do not see Tyler Ennis scoring a lot. I think that's going to hurt him, and I think there's really the two scores, to be quite honest. I think it's Fair and Grant. I don't think Ennis scores enough. He's struggled as of late. He's a great point guard. He's a great he's got
leader.
great hands, great leader, and he's a great passer. But I just see Dayton. I think the zone is gonna bite him. In the butt. Like I said before, 3 players over 38%. I mean, the averages speak for himself. Jordan Sibbert is one of actually add that to the list before key players in the tournament. I have Dayton advancing to the Sweet 16. I think he's gonna go off versus Syracuse. But I think one thing Syracuse has to do, which they kind of progressed in the later years. Boeheim used to have that 2-3 zone, just kind of the elementary 2-3 zone, sticking to your zones. But with such athleticism, and when people just the shot
In college basketball today,
with 3-point percentages being so high, you kind of have to trap more. You have to push out. So I think they're gonna have to do that in order to beat Dayton. But I think Dayton's 3-point shooting is just too much, and Jordan Sibbert will just light them up.
So Rory has Dayton advancing on. Something that I think will be telling if Dayton does beat Ohio State and play Syracuse is in the round before Syracuse when they're playing Western Michigan, the point guard for Western Michigan is real good. He had 5 threes in the MAC title game, 32 points. Yeah. So we'll see how Syracuse deals with a good shooting team in the first
like we
round.
Said, the key to an upset, 3-point shooting. Let's face it.
Yep, that's what you need to be a giant killer.
And Dayton is battle tested, like we said before, in the A-10. They're going to be ready, and I think teams are going to overlook them.
So Rory has Dayton advancing. I have Cuse. And in our final matchup, we both have Kansas against New Mexico. They actually played in the regular season. Kansas won the game. In Kansas City, the game was in, which is practically home for Kansas. But they took that game. Alex Kirk did not have a good game for New Mexico. Their big 7-footer. Kendall Williams and Cameron Bairstow mainly scored most of their points in garbage time. So Kansas won that game. But the key was in that game, Embiid was playing.
With Embiid out, that's a whole different thing.
I think
that changes the size. I mean, the 7-footer, like you said, is going to go off. So I think that adds a whole new element. It's tough to decide, but I just still think Andrew Wiggins is too prolific of a scorer. His mid-range game has just been so good as of late. And since his jumper's been on the second half of the season, they've really just been playing. They've played so well. And I just think Kansas is too much.
So if we go back to that game, Kansas took the game 80-63. But Embiid was such a big factor. He got in early foul trouble, but came back. I think he had around 18 points, a bunch of rebounds. He had a really good game there. I think that if Embiid comes back, he's not going to come back for that game, it doesn't look like. He's out for the opening weekend. So if Embiid does not come back, I think that it could cause some real problems for Kansas to deal with the size that New Mexico has, which not a lot of teams in college basketball do have.
Their other big player, Perry Ellis, just not as big as their 7-footer. I think
Not physical.
Not physical enough. He's got a good post game, but not a physical post game. More of a kind of finesse agility post game. So I think they're going to struggle if Embiid's out.
Yeah.
But I still think they'll pull through.
As do I. I think it will be a really close game if Embiid's not playing. I just see too much Wiggins and too much just of Kansas pulling through against a good New Mexico team. So we have our Sweet 16 set. Mine is Florida, UCLA, Syracuse, Kansas, top 4.
And the only difference for me is Dayton and Corey, you'll be wrong, seeing as one never plays 4 barely. And I mean, 1 barely ever plays 4 and 3 barely ever plays 2. So I'm probably going to be right.
I'm going a little too chalky, but some of my other brackets, don't worry, they have the upsets. So now we get to the Sweet 16. The only thing that concerned me when I was looking at the Florida UCLA game was just how bad the SEC was. I never realized it. I knew that they were bad, but I didn't know that they were as close to the Missouri Valley as the Big 12 in conference power rankings. Mm-hmm. So that concerned me a little bit. The 7th best league.
And when you see like the 2nd best team is Kentucky and they beat them 3 times, that's very tough to do, seeing as Michigan actually lost to Michigan State on the 3rd time. Beating a team 3 times is very tough. So the SEC is very weak.
But I just think Florida's a little better with size, like Patrick Young, will you get, Chris Walker. I'm not sure if UCLA can combat that. I think that game could also be close, really entertaining. 2 teams that like to shoot. Florida presses a little bit. So it should be a good game, but I see Florida advancing on to the Elite Eight.
Yeah, 2 balance of a team, 10 points from 4 players. I think they're just too deep. I think the one way UCLA can win, they're going to have to make this a shootout. Like we said, 81 points per game. It's going to have to be up in the 80s or the high 70s for actually UCLA to advance. That's all going to come down to the scoring of Jordan Adams, Kyle Anderson, and I think that's going to be kind of the main factor between those 2 teams.
So we both have Florida advancing on to the Elite Eight.
So Florida is our first team in the Elite Eight. And in the second matchup, there's not much to tell. Dayton runs out of gas right here. Kansas. Well, do you know if Embiid will be back by Sweet 16, or are you not?
We're not sure. Nobody knows yet.
Yeah.
We have to wait and see. We think he's out for the opening weekend, which concerns people a little bit with that New Mexico game.
Yeah.
Hopefully he can come back. We can have the best teams on the floor.
But I think that New Mexico can be a trap game if Embiid is not back. But I still think Kansas is just too good of a team for Dayton. Dayton with not that much size, but I just think Kansas is too strong of a team, and they're my second Elite Eight team. So I think for us, the Elite Eight, we both have Florida, Kansas, which, I mean, truly a lot of people have.
True. So Rory has Kansas beating Dayton. I think that Kansas will go on. I'm hoping Embiid comes back. But I still have them beating Syracuse. I know Kansas isn't a great three-point shooting team. Wiggins can shoot a little bit from 3. Selden's not a great three-point shooter. I know they're not too high in three-point percentage, but I think that there's other ways to break down the zone from just shooting threes. You get in the middle of that lane, look under the hoop.
That's where
Sometimes
Embiid's gonna be
vulnerability
big.
is behind the zone.
Yeah. And that's where Embiid's going to be big. If he can stand in that middle and just dish to the shooters, I think that's going to be a key in that game. If they do play Syracuse.
Exactly. But even without Embiid, I think they have enough to squeak by Kansas, by Syracuse, not by themselves, to get into that final game of the South region. Florida, Kansas, Rory and me. Who do we have? You go first.
I have Florida.
As do I.
And I think they're just too good. I think they're just too well balanced of a team. But I think the one thing that could be their downfall is Frazier. He needs to shoot well. He's their best three-point shooter with over 100 attempts. He has a great three-point shooting percentage. But in games when he's only made 1 3-point shot, there's in 6 of the 8 games where he's only made 1 3-point shot, they've won by less than 10 in all those games. And actually, that one of them came to a loss against UConn. And 1 or 2 losses. So he needs to shoot well for them. He's kind of their X factor. If he shoots well, they usually can beat a team by 20 or 25. At least he's kind of like the teams like Pittsburgh. But against a team like Kansas, he's going to need to shoot well in order for them to win. I think Embiid's going to be still a little banged up. I mean, you can't just come back from injury and be 100%. I hope he is, because I want to see that matchup. But I think Wiggins has too much of a load to carry to beat Florida.
Likewise, I think Roy hit on the offense pretty well. I think also defensively, with Casey Prather and Frazier, they're a very long team, Florida. Really good defensively. I think that's going to be tough for Kansas, a team that can sometimes struggle scoring. And I think that they'll just have a little much. I think the key to the game is Scotty Wilbekin, because he shoots 40% from 3. And when he hits his threes, it's very difficult to guard Florida.
Yeah.
So I think
opens up the floor, extends it, lets Casey Prather do his thing with his mid-range
got into the
game.
lane.
Yeah.
So that's our brackets for you. We both have Florida coming out of the South.
And most people do. I mean, it's a very weak bracket compared to the other ones. I just don't see a lot of upsets. I mean,
Yeah,
I think
neither do I.
Dayton could happen, but I really wouldn't be surprised if Dayton lost.
So there you have it. Stay tuned. We are going to give you our West breakdown, our Midwest breakdown, and our East breakdown in following podcasts. It's been real, guys. The next podcast will come from Tel Aviv. We will not be picking Maccabi Tel Aviv in any of our bracket. They're not there. But it's been fun.